listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. It's Montel here with another edition of Let's Be Blunt, where we talk about everything and anything cannabis, making sure that we give you as much information as you possibly can get and need to help you navigate this space in a better way. And, you know, there's a lot of choices out there, and so I want to make sure you get the education that you need to understand that when you go out and make purchases, you get things that are working for you. And so we do cover everything and anything cannabis. We also cover some other issues, making sure that we're going to keep you up to date on what's going on, especially in this election year. So you'll notice that I'll be covering some other topics along the way. And they're varied topics just to make sure we keep you apprised of what's happening around you. But today, I'm in Florida, in Miami, Florida, and have an unbelievable guest with us today. He's the CEO and inventor of the award-winning MagicalButter Machine, a self-contained appliance that produces cannabis-infused butter oil, tincture, gummies, lotion, and much, much more. He founded the Cheers to Goodness Foundation, a unique nonprofit charity dedicated to uplifting medical refugees, and the organization provides financial assistance to patients in need of specialized medical treatment. Most recently, donating MB2e machines to medical marijuana patients in need in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. He's been named one of High Times 100 most influential people in cannabis for the past 2 years in a row. Garyn, thank you so much for being with us here today, sir.
Montel, I love you, brother. It's always nice to see your face.
Absolutely. And, you know, for those people who don't know, let's go back a little bit and talk a little bit about your background as an inventor and an entrepreneur. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur. I started selling bubble gum out of my backpack in 6th and 7th grade. You know, just a real, let's take something and sell it for more was the original process of my brain. And after I made money and accumulated enough cash, I realized that that's a pretty empty feeling. Cash isn't really the king to life. Right. And I know you're on that exact same journey. So just sharing that energy and understanding that life has no angles. I think we'll come back to that a few times throughout this podcast.
Okay, absolutely. So that's what started you down the path, but now you didn't jump in immediately into the the magical bullet machine. What was your first entrepreneurial experience?
So I was a money manager.
I should say first after the bubblegum.
Yeah. So after bubblegum, my first thing, I had a computer company. My dad owned one of the first Apple franchises in the world. So I grew up in a pretty geeky background, cutting microprocessors and circuits off of PCB boards at a young age, and that went towards money management. I graduated college at 20 and was real aggressive my whole life as far as entrepreneurial spirit. But when you help someone, when you're able to serve a community, that's when you're getting a gift. Mm-hmm. So much of our life is about making money because 9 to 5 for the average person is, how do I get a paycheck to feed my family? Yes. Once you've achieved that, then please start serving other people.
Well, you know, one of the greatest quotes of the last century was, a living is made by what you get. A life is made by what you give.
Give, baby.
No question.
And you've given so much, Montel, through the years, brother. I watch, and a lot of people don't understand that Montel served his whole life. If you go back to his military duty, and then we all know him from his speaking on all the important topics on his talk shows through the years. But in reality, still to this day, you're still serving veterans. You're still helping patients. Absolutely. You're out there every day grinding, helping others. It's inspiring, man. Brother.
I mean, it's what life is all about. I mean, to live life for self alone is really almost worthless.
It's empty.
So absolutely, you have to be able to reach out. I mean, at the end of the day, we're here for such a short period of time, and you stop and think about it for just, if you pondered it for 1 second, there's probably been close to 15 billion people who have lived and walked this planet in the last, 2,000 years, and not many people can name more than about 5. So let's say, name 5 historical figures that you respect. Most people will come up with maybe 5. So out of 15 billion, you can only remember 5, and that's only because, and the ones that you remember will be people, most people will say Gandhi, most people will say, in a negative way, they might say Hitler because they remember a name of somebody who did so much damage to humanity. But most people can't name 5 people. And, not that I want to be named, 1,000 years from now, but, that means that my contribution wasn't as great as it could have been if I can't be named.
Leaving your marks all over the world. That's what this is about. It's about traveling, getting involved in culture, and just finding something that helps you serve others without taking.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest key.
And you know, I mean, I think what people don't understand is that when you say without taking, taking doesn't mean that you can't be remunerated for what you've done. There's nothing wrong with remuneration, and there's nothing wrong with you making a living. It's just if you only live for that alone.
So my definition of taking is this. When we exchange, whatever it is, the value is more to the other person than it was to you.
Right.
And so if you're selling something, and we're talking about cannabis goods at this point, but
Sure.
this applies to anything in general. When you're doing that exchange, always make sure that you're providing more value to the person than the cash is worth that you're taking.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, that's when you're living in a service world.
So now that you shifted over to the cannabis world, what got you started in cannabis?
I had a friend with Crohn's disease, and I had a very successful career managing money for large family offices and people of significant wealth. It's a way to make money. And you can help people, but when you're helping people who are already rich, it's not the same as when you're helping someone who's dying or debilitated or really needs, they're underserved or unserved. And that's, the exchange there is much different than, well, we got a 12% ROI.
Right.
It's immeasurable, the depth to the relationship. And when you can get out of transactional relationships and get into relationships of depth, that's when you really get goosebumps on your skin. That's when you're in passion. And when you live with passion, that's how you leave a mark. And if you want to be one of the 5 names that people remember, whether that's, you know, in the terrible way or in the great way, you got to leave your mark. I think we're in a transitional period in the world where we're actually moving to a spot where people are just happy and healthy and joyful. It's been a long process to get here for mankind or humankind. I feel we're closer than we've ever been. I would much rather be alive today than 100 years ago.
I love it today, but I think what's happened, though, is because of technology and the way that we have misused technology, we've become more narcissistic than I think we've ever been. As a race, as a race of people, as a part of the human race. I mean, I think, you know, you can go back in time and you know, no matter what period you look at in our history, there was a sense of community of some sort. Whether or not it's one community that wants to lord over another, there was a group of people who recognized the benefit of being in a group. Now, I think we're living at a time when people are trying to define the benefit of living individually. And, you know, I mean, I think it's that idea of, you know, holding that cell phone up and taking a click of, you know, yourself when you're going to the bathroom. I mean, who cares? Honestly, or taking a click of yourself when you're sitting down and eating a meal. Who cares? There are people who tune in to take a look at that picture of the food that you set up, you put up there. But how much does that impact society? And I think, unfortunately, for me, I just think that we are living at some of the best of times. I fear that, you know, we may be misguided at what the best of times could really mean for us so many more. Because there's so much more that we could be doing. Rather than taking a picture of the plate of food I'm about to consume, I could be taking a picture of, you know, the tip that I gave the person who served it to me.
Completely agree.
I could be taking a picture of the leftovers that I put in the box and gave to the person sitting outside in the street and on the corner, because there's so many more people sitting outside on the street in the corner. But we're not doing that.
It's coming. I know it is, because I have 2 kids. I have a 12 and a 13-year-old boy. My son's favorite YouTuber is Mr. Beast. And I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Beast or not. We watch his shows or his new episodes every day, or every time they come out. They're all about giving and supporting community. I really feel that the future of money or monetization is how do you build community, not how do you exchange goods. As we move along with AI, and I know this is a little futuristic, but let's also be realistic. If you're not living in the future now, you're probably not living your best life. I've watched you live your life and always been a super fan of yours. I tremendous respect for you as a legend and staying on the tip of the spear. And what you've always done is you've always been at the forefront of the issues. When you look at cannabis, you were one of the arrows piercing that veil through with a big microphone, changing the mentality, the need for veteran care. You've been one of the only proponents of it for a 20-year, 30-year period. And when you look at that, that's building community. And I get it. I see it because my window's been a little shorter. All right, my window's been 2010. I started making investments in the cannabis industry.
Right.
And I built a great community my whole life, but it was without purpose, if you will. The community that's been built over the last 9 years in this cannabis industry, they're about people really trying to move public health forward. Not all of them.
Right.
But
That's another area that we can talk about for hours on end. It's like I've been disappointed in our business in this industry. I mean, I started working in cannabis 20 years ago, long before it was vogue, long before it was the green rush, back at a time when, I couldn't get, a celebrity in Hollywood to step up and back me for the fact that, I was out and as outspoken as I was, talking about the fact that I use on a daily basis. I'm using to mitigate, some of my issues that I had with MS, and hoping that I could help people understand that, I was having a private conversation with my doctor, and you don't need to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Other people don't need to be a part of that conversation. A person should be able to go to their doctor, and if the doctor is smart enough to recommend, a drug that's going to burn a person from the inside out, like chemotherapy, if that same doctor who's as educated as he is recommends cannabis, then everybody else should just shut up, stay out of the conversation. But unfortunately, the industry has grown so quickly that I say it all the time. When I first started in this, my whole objective was to take the patient off the battlefield. And we had an industry that initially started that seemed that that's what they wanted to do. I can remember back in the days when there were people being carted away, laying on gurneys with IVs in them in Northern California, carted away because they had 5 plants growing in their backyard. And I was trying to think, this is really ridiculous. We should be fighting against the injustice of locking up a person just because they're trying to survive. So let's take the patient off the battlefield. And then that's translated into how fast can I grow a business? And so there's a lot of people who are in this industry right now that, got involved because they wanted to be a part of the green rush, the gold rush, and forgot, and are still leaving the patients on the battlefield. They're driving by with trucks, but the truck doesn't have a big H printed on the rooftop. It's just a truck driving by trying to provide supplies, trying to provide infrastructure, rather than remembering that the trucks that are on the battlefields with the big H, they are emergency vehicles that stop to pick up a patient and take them off the battlefield, take them back to triage first. That's who we help first. Then we figure out how to buy more trucks. Then we figure out how to provide big buildings. But let's get the patient off the battlefield. And now, the industry has shifted so quickly into let's think about adult use nationwide. And then I even think that those who are in favor of adult use don't understand that almost all the adults that are gravitated to cannabis do so because of some underlying medical issue that they may not even be aware of themselves. They may not want to admit to themselves, but most of them have made the choice between cannabis and alcohol because, they get much more cessation of, anxiety. It helps more with their sleep. That's a medical issue. So
self-awareness.
I got to get self-awareness. We got to get people to start focusing back on, I think, what is the root reason for starting this process. Money's going to come. That's not even that. We haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to the cannabis industry worldwide. It has not even begun. There was a period of time when, most people don't recognize that the entire, financial infrastructure of this country was based on cannabis.
Some might argue that the only reason why it's prohibitive is because hemp was a threat for too many other agricultural products, right? Like it's that simple that if you go back to prohibition, hemp was a threat to too many other products.
And even if you remembered back during prohibition, the leader in the fight against cannabis and hemp was Henry Anslinger. And Henry Anslinger was a huge supporter of cannabis during alcohol prohibition. He actually used to run around the country doing speeches about the fact that, cannabis was less violent. They were seeing the fact that there wasn't violent outbursts. It wasn't until he lost his job as a prohibitionist that he needed to figure out a way to get paid. So he teamed up with William Randolph Hearst and Charles DuPont and said, I think I'm going to help you guys destroy more trees. I'm going to help you destroy and create these things called, synthetic textiles. And most people don't remember that, the only thing that the North and South really had in common during the Civil War was the fact that about 60% of our uniforms were made from hemp fiber.
Ropes.
Rope, sails, the word canvas comes from cannabis.
Where do we think this is going as we continue to unpack this? We know that hemp is a massive crop at this point, and unfortunately, this has been a tough season. If you're getting into the hemp growing business, you may or may not have an outlet for your finished product. There's a lot of farmers that put millions of dollars into crop that is in question because the federal regulations, specifically the FDA's ruling and enforcement letters on FDA, makes Fortune 500 companies skittish to enter the space. So in one side, it's good because it allows, I know you have a CBD brand,
Sure.
and it allows you to have an opportunity to compete against a Coke or a Budweiser or a real CPG company that's focused so much with unlimited resources behind them. That's the opportunity, but it's also at a high internal cost. The internal cost is that these are dietary essentials that are being restricted, and the real scientific data is being withheld from the patient or the consumer.
Correct.
Simply because our government is archaic in their approach. There's no logic behind.
There's been no logic behind this. When most people, again, I talk about it quite a bit on this podcast, is the fact that most people don't know that this government has been dispensing cannabis in the marijuana form for well over 46 years. This government has been funding research around the world for over 46 years, funding research here in the United States. That's right. We funded research. We funded Meshulam. We funded the University of Mississippi.
We funded the discovery of all
Correct.
of it.
Of THC, CBD, the endocannabinoid system, and all the individual. Correct.
It's all ours.
Right. But at the same time, and you can take a look again at the abstract for the U.S. patent on CBD, it states unequivocally what the government has already proven that it knows that CBD is
Why do we hurt farmers? Why do we hurt farmers? It seems so counterbalanced to everything about global warming.
To protect other businesses. We don't even understand the impact of cannabis or hemp on global warming. We don't understand the impact of what hemp could do for farmers.
Remediation of soils.
Correct.
Like just the simple things that we can do with this.
There are two companies that started in the last 2 years that have proven that hemp, cellulose, and fiber is a better medium for electrical storage than graphite. So there are battery companies that are using hemp fiber right now to store electricity. And we have the issues that we have with alternative sources of energy. It could be an incredible alternative source of energy, but again, it is more stupidity and I think hypocrisy. Hypocrisy in the fact that those who are in the power to make decisions know the truth. But just like right now, we have people who are trying to disband or completely get rid of all of the regulation towards the industries that are causing most of the damage through global warming, and trying to say, no, that doesn't matter, we'll get rid of these regulations. They know the truth, but these are people who are focused more on how they can line their own pocket as quickly as they can before the bubble bursts. And I often wonder, why is anybody asking the question, where are you going to spend the money when the bubble bursts?
And for cannabis, I think the bubble did burst. I think the bubble started bursting in June. If you look at the market capitalization of the largest cannabis companies, it's been anywhere between a 90 and a 50% retraction in their market caps. They've really felt it. You have companies like MedMen potentially on the brink of bankruptcy with a market cap of sub $100 million when 6-7 months ago, they were anywhere between $1.5 billion and $3 billion.
I think, though, this is just a retraction, momentary retraction.
Agreed.
Depending on, it doesn't even matter who's in power. You can only deny truth for so long. And
Time clock.
whether they like it or not, I mean, there are so many. I've been interviewing, doctors and specialists who are proving the efficaciousness of cannabis and cannabis as a, medical agent, and you can't put that cat back in the bag.
How much bigger than cannabis does this get with regards to plant-derived compounds?
We have focused on plant-derived medicine for over 40 years. Some of the top, oncology drugs are based solely on plants that we found in the rainforest. And we know, if again, we have the audacity to claim that we believe, that Albert Einstein was right when he said for every reaction there's an equal and opposite reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction to everything that happens in nature. So if nature created a virus or a bacteria, there was something that nature created to destroy that. We just haven't found it yet. And we may not ever be able to find it with the speed in which we are burning down rainforest. Hopefully, there are scientists that are there right now trying to stay, inches ahead of the flames to grab plants that we may never, ever, ever, ever see again because we're burning them down. But some of the cures to those things that are going to destroy us exist. They're there. And we know this. We've known this, and science knows this. It's just a matter of, those who are willing to take the patient up the battlefield, to put an H on the top of that truck rather than buy more trucks. And there are some out there that I think are trying their best to do that. And I'm an optimist in the sense that I think that though there has been this contraction in this industry, I think it's getting ready to, just like, before a supernova explodes or a black hole explodes, it contracts, and then it blows up and explodes. That's what's happening, I think, in the cannabis business.
And I see it in a similar mindset. I look at the spiritual awakening of the human being, and I think cannabis is one of those steps. There's been a lot of talk through the years about cannabis being a gateway drug. I look at the
now we know it's an exit drug.
Yeah, I look at the mental health epidemic that we're suffering through, and I will say a lot of what you had said earlier was, are we at the best point in life? I feel we are, but the problems are exasperated, right? Like, we're looking at them on a giant scale because of social media and because of the Instagram. You see the personality defects and some of the psychological issues that come around wealth and how that's disconnected from well-being. When we look downstream a little bit further, though, I really think there's a path towards mental happiness and a life without angles, where we get to a spherical energy where all of us are contributing. When we look at the challenges, right? Like, I know you've been in some bad situations. I've been in some bad situations. And it's always been because somebody had an angle. Mm-hmm. Whatever was being given back to them wasn't being pushed back.
Right.
So that's the challenge that we've faced as humankind. As we've evolved as a species, there's been less and less and less of that. I think that a lot of these plant-derived compounds really give people the ability to see the world in a more spherical light and have no angles in their personal life. Mm-hmm. I know for me personally, cannabis has made me much more self-aware of my goods and my bads, and it's allowed me to double and triple and quadruple down on my good tendencies and eliminate my bad ones, because the feeling, the guilt, the terrible carryover that I had from whatever I said or did, I was so conscious, and it wasn't that it was hurtful for someone else. It was that I didn't like exactly. Yeah. I didn't like the energy. I'm all about throwing positives 24/7. And when there's a negative that comes out of my mouth, I really want to dissect it and figure out how next time when I'm in that situation, how could I reword that and make it a positive? And that's simply because I'm more self-aware. And when you're living a natural, holistic life, you become incredibly self-aware of all of the beings around you, from the ants to the plants to the people.
Right, and that's really, I guess that's what started you down the path. What made you think, let me create this machine? How did that start? Let's talk about the magical Magical butter machine.
I was with a friend who had Crohn's disease, and inhalation had been his modality for containing his side effects of his
That was
disease
his
state.
delivery system.
And his asthma made it so he could no longer inhale cannabis. He was trying to cook it at home. I'm sure many of the podcast listeners here have tried to make brownies or cookies or whatever it is you're trying to make at home. And usually, let's be realistic, that's an adolescent state. You know, let's say you're in college, 22, 24, to whatever age you are, you're with your friends. When there's a real medical need, you're trying to get away from the sugars and the snacks and all the rest of it and get towards a more holistic way to take this as a dietary supplement. And even when you were making those brownies, there was no way to do it. There was no set system.
Right.
You used a crock pot or a pan. And that's the gap. That's the innovation. That's anybody who's listening, who's an entrepreneur, that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for unserved or underserved people. If you want to enjoy your income and actually sleep well at night, it's because you're helping somebody or a community that's unserved or underserved. I'm certain that some of your most fulfilling work is with the veterans or with the children that you've worked with through the years. And it's the same thing. This was a way to help people. Specifically, it started with Crohn's disease, and now, look, MS is a big factor. And at the time, I'll be very candid. I didn't know that cannabis had as much effect on the body as it does. But every disease known to mankind interacts with our endocannabinoid system.
Correct.
If you have a disease, you need to understand that interaction. And I'm not saying it's for you. It's definitely not a panacea. But between a balanced diet, good exercise, great mental health regime, really invest in your mental health. I think that's what you've done better than anybody else, right? Invest in your mental health, get yourself to a stable spot so you can help others, and then project. And then when you start to do that and you start to heal the community that you're afflicted by, and that's really what you've done. I don't know that I'm telling my story or yours at this point, but you've helped an entire community of people suffering from MS, and it's something that's very dear to my heart. I have a sibling that is challenged by MS, and she has a banking job, and it's actually a sister of mine. She can't use cannabis, and we've been to Mayo Clinic, the best of the best of the best of the best physicians, and all these silly procedures. And I'm not calling them silly but I'm calling them silly because they didn't work.
Right.
Like to me, something, if you do, it's silly if it didn't work. Right. And there's all these silly procedures and protocols that are put in place that have almost no chance of success instead of trying different alternatives. And that's why I'm here. That's why I left high-paying jobs to go after. And has my net worth increased since I started in the cannabis industry? Yes, both through investment and operation. Has my net pay decreased significantly since I've been? I still don't take a paycheck. I'm 7 years into a company. And it's not that the company can't afford it. It's that I'd rather repurpose those dollars towards affecting more change.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of beauty in this space. I really do. When the patients and the people, it really depends on what you surround yourself by.
Absolutely.
When you're plugged in, we have over 300,000, I think maybe 350,000 customers now around the world. And it's moms and grandmas and kids who've suffered and have had nothing. And we make a device for $175 that helps them. It's a tool.
Let's talk a little bit more about the device itself. Now, this device, you use multiple different mediums to be able to extract the cannabinoids out of the cellulose material and then infuse it in other products, right? So talk about the things that you can actually use to make cannabis butter.
We make cannabis a base ingredient. So it becomes a butter, an oil, a tincture, a skincare product, a suppository, and then it's applied for what you need. For example, people with Crohn's disease, suppositories are a tremendous asset.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, in the American culture, it's kind of a joke. And
it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't
because that's an absorption alternative.
And a good one.
Correct.
Perhaps one of the best.
Right.
Your microbiome and getting your gut health right is the key to controlling a lot of disease state.
Yes.
Is having a healthy gut helps create a healthy brain, which when you put those two together, your heart gets healthy and then your body gets healthy. And it all starts in what we ingest and how we work out.
And when you take a look at something like Crohn's disease, what's the best medium that you use, or what's the one that most people say back to you has gotten them the most benefit?
So I'm SNS, suppository and salad dressings.
Got it.
Okay, so if you're inspired to eat healthy because A, it tastes incredible, but you know that it's a functional food product that's giving you the nutrients that you need to balance your microbiome, you're a lot more inclined to have that than a cheeseburger or fried chicken wings and a beer. And that's really it. It's empowering patients to understand that suppositories, if you need them, take them, use them. They're incredible. They work. And eat more salad dressing, because that in turn means you're eating more salads.
Right. And so you make the salad dressing using what oils? What would you use?
We'll use a variety
Olive
of
oil,
olive oil, coconut oil, right? And
avocado oil.
avocado oil, grapes, and a lot of different people have sensitivities to different oils or different fats. So understanding that person's body and then helping them craft a dietary plan that suits their needs is the key. None of us are alike.
Right,
That's
absolutely.
like we're a fingerprint. What works for your body doesn't work for mine. We had this conversation yesterday. I was actually with two patients, and one a sativa puts to sleep, one a sativa wakes up.
Correct.
And I'm not there to say one does the other, right?
Right.
You're the user. You tell me what your experience is. And when you look at it, it might not be what it says on paper, but I think so much of this is throwing the papers out, self-experience through people who have already done this. So you have a guided journey. And if you look, I do think that when psychedelics are an important part of this equation long-term as well. I think that there's a lot of people that are suffering from mental health issues that need something more than cannabis. I know I've done a tremendous amount of work with the veterans through the years, and I know it's something that really inspires you and carries you through your life. Those soldiers did some things that they have to clear out of their head.
Absolutely.
And
there are some alternatives that are coming to bear right now that are helping that out. We're starting to do the proper research on those alternatives.
How sad is it that we don't have this research?
Well, you know what? The truth is that the research has been done.
It has.
It's just not been made available.
It's not public.
Correct.
Right? And it's not actionable. That's the problem. And we've seen a lack of interest from pharmaceutical companies in the cannabis
Of
industry.
course, because again, it's just like you take a look at what's happened in the pharmaceutical industry when it comes to cannabis. There is absolutely zero reason other than the fact that the governing bodies or the bodies that, give the blessing on the top require such exorbitant amounts of money to be spent that a pharmaceutical company getting into cannabis decides to put a product in the marketplace that's overpriced 1,000 to 2,000 times what it should be. Let's remember, this is a weed. And at the beginning of time, that's what it was. And if you grew it the right way, right now, I'm still completely thrown by the fact that we're still an industry that's trying to take a product, sit it in a back room with a whole bunch of people with scissors, and clip it down and make it look like a pretty little ball. Stop. How stupid is that? You could grow 15-foot plants, 20-foot plants. They could be grown with huge colas on them that literally are just inundated with medication. But we spend too much time getting a whole bunch of trimmers in the bag so I can make sure that when I put it on the shelf in a store, sitting beside another thing in the shelf in the store, it looks like this pretty little ball. Why? Why? It's going to be another 10 years before we get past that stupidity.
I know a large part of your focus through the years has been on the scientific delivery of these molecules and the studies behind them. It's been a focus point of mine as well. And when you understand the opportunity here, It's to cause a paradigm shift in public health.
Yes.
This is not about a short-term solution or monetizing a plant and making it look pretty on a dispensary shelf. This is really about how do you take somebody who has no answers and give them a life back,
Right.
extend their purpose.
Right.
And that, still to this day, when you look at that plant, that's what I see. I don't see a green ball. I see hope. I see opportunity. I see life.
The industry's got to start turning its eyes in that direction, or we'll find this industry, like you just said, contract to the point that it disappears again, and it'll be another 30 years before we get back to the same place. Let me ask you another question. You've been working a lot in decriminalization in your hometown, is that right?
Yeah. So
other initiatives? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the city of Port Richey is the smallest city in the United States to decriminalize cannabis. We have 2,500 residents. And what I did is I wanted to show other people how they could affect change in their local government. Look, I'm a pretty fortunate soul. I've been around all the right people my whole life, much like you. So if I want to meet with someone, I can meet with someone. I've had dinner with Newt Gingrich. I've met with Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul and given them what I thought needed to happen on cannabis and hemp legislation. But that's not where it starts. That's the most difficult spot to affect change. It really starts at your local municipality. And I don't care if you're in a city of 2,500 like me. I'm a good old country boy. Like I really love being in a small town. I live my Monday through Friday in London, New York, Hong Kong, the largest cities in the world. And my Saturday and Sunday, I'm in a town of 2,500 people with my wife and kids. And that's an underserved or unserved community where people were still being arrested for cannabis possession. So I spoke with the local politicians, and fortunately I am a worldwide cannabis thought leader. So when I speak to them, I can bring in resources of ministers of health and things to give them on a quick 5-minute phone call. Look, this isn't the devil. This is something that's beneficial for your community. You just don't understand the science yet. So we got our politicians behind us, and then we made a motion to move towards decriminalization, and it was a process. I'll tell you, I had to walk out of 2 meetings, and they called me back in, right? Like, Garyn, please don't leave. We want you here. We don't understand it yet.
Sure.
But don't be afraid to close the file. I think so many people, when they get to a point of conflict, they want to respond back with negativity.
Right.
And your real move, if you're powerful, is to say, I'm going to close this file and you're going to regret it. I'll come back to you when you're ready.
Right.
And what that does is it makes them ready. Get your politicians ready. Inspire them. I'll share my contact information throughout the podcast or later in the podcast. If you want help on strategy on how you change your local laws, I'll give you the footprint. I'll share a video with you.
Give them a website that they can reach out to you right now.
So MagicalButter.com is our main site. We did just acquire the word magical around the world, so we own Magical.com, Mexico, Canada, whatever, and all the top-level domains and handles for Magical. So angel@magical is my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help. My assistants will hit you back, and it'll get funneled into me. But we have a 7-step process for you to change your local law, and go and do it. Invest the 6 months. Earlier, Montel and I were discussing there's 5 people on earth that are probably remembered throughout multiple generations. Leave your mark on your local community by helping them. And you're going to save a teacher from getting arrested. You're going to help a grandma feel more comfortable consuming. There's a lot of good that comes from this. And I'm a firsthand witness of the waterfall of what happens when you affect change at both a local, a national, and a global level.
Absolutely. And now what else? You got to have some new products. So you're as an entrepreneur, you don't sit back and just rest on your laurels. So what's coming next?
I'm an inventor, and every day is day one for me. Every single day I wake up and I'm inspired to do something new. Look, I think there's a few different things. I'm one of the 2%, 3%, whatever it is, that only needs 4 or 5 hours a night of sleep. A lot of people suffer from insomnia, and they need more sleep than that. They're just not getting it.
Right.
So we have some sleep aid products that are coming out. We have focus products. I think we're all on that same path of just really giving people what they need. As far as tools to make your own extracts, we have some new products coming out in Q1 and Q2 of next year. Different sizes. I think we've won 9 cannabis cups now. So in that process, we've understood the importance of a potent extract and getting the most out of plants that cost a lot of money. I mean, a lot of these dispensaries are $15 to $20 a gram.
Sure.
So getting that potency out and really delivering edibles to people in a way where they can afford to consume daily if it's a medical necessity. If you go to an edible is the most expensive way to consume cannabis. And when you go to a dispensary, it'll cost you $20 and you're likely getting chocolates or gummy bears.
Right.
I'm just not a fan of that. I think that if this is a sustainable part of your diet, it should be in a soup, a sauce, or a salad dressing.
Correct.
And eat healthy meals that you're also eating functional foods. Let food be thy medicine. And we're right at the beginning of that now. I know we are. We've seen Whole Foods be acquired by Amazon because it was the best grocer in the U.S. And we're just starting to push that. We're just starting to push personal wellness and patient responsibility. Most people get sick, they just want to go right to the doctor.
Right.
And like when I was a kid, my mom, the first 5 things we tried were home remedies.
Correct.
I want to go back to that time, but in a more scientific format.
Right. Good. And provide the tools that a person can use to do that.
Yeah, don't go to an antibiotic every time. Long term, it's probably not the best thing for your microbiome.
Actually, it's not the best thing for the country, for the world.
It's just
Because those antibiotics that you take end up in the water system, end up in the oceans, end up in the fish, end up in the entire food chain.
It really wrecks our ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Because we're not. You said it earlier. Everything on this planet has a balance.
Correct.
And we're not using the natural balances. This is one of the interesting things about mushrooms. Mushrooms are one of the only extracts or plants that the pharmaceutical industry hasn't been able to enhance. So when you just look at it in its raw state, it's better than anything you're going to get from a Merck, a Bayer, or a Pfizer. And when you just think about that in the most simplest of form, we're so close to nature taking over. That's why I'm so excited about the future. Is I look at it and I see it. I see the world as a round sphere, and there's no angles. People don't have angles in the future because it's too transparent.
Sure.
The cannabis testing, that's the most beautiful thing that's come out of the cannabis. In my opinion, the most beautiful thing that's come out of the cannabis industry to date is the depth to a COA where a customer gets to see the chain of custody and the testing results of what they're about to ingest.
Right.
You'd be shocked, for my friends out there that are listening, you'd be shocked if you saw the nutritional quality of an apple that you eat.
Right. Absolutely.
It's been genetically modified to be sugar.
Correct.
So that way it doesn't
And
rot.
genetically modified to last for a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, sprayed with wax.
Nothing falls off a tree and stays alive for a year and a half. Yet, isn't it weird how no matter what time of the year, you can go to a grocery store and still find a crystal green, beautiful apple.
Perfect. They're perfect.
Yeah, and think that wasn't frozen.
Perfect.
Think that wasn't frozen, and it didn't turn brown after it thawed. Come on, how did that happen?
But that's where we're going to. Is we're going to a spot where you can get a COA from an apple on a QR code and understand the nutrient quality of what you're about to ingest.
Right.
And when we get to that level of transparency and then you put AI behind it, I do think that these functional foods will start to extend life and food will eventually be thy medicine.
Absolutely.
And realistically, the protocols that help that happen are going to have been inspired by cannabis.
Yes. Let's just hope that the cannabis industry survives that till we get to that point. It will. I don't think, again, you can't put the cat back in the bag. Can't call old Blue back. Old Blue, come back in. The fence was open. No, old Blue is down the road. He's already running down the road. You may ride down there and pick him up in the car, but he ain't going to be tied down to a pole anymore. So, but there could be a lot more ease by which this is done. And I hope that we don't turn into a situation where, again, this whole, contracting of the industry doesn't turn into some sort of form of legislative contraction also. We'll hope that, but I don't think it's going to.
I don't think it can at this point, simply because, look, when you started cannabis, you were a pioneer in it. You were out on a limb, and a lot of people discounted your therapy as pseudoscience or somebody trying to get attention. And in reality, you paved a new road for patients to really follow behind in a wake without all the bumpiness, because you figured a lot of it out. In that wake, there's been millions of other patients that stepped in and paved their own roads.
Right.
And there's just fresh powder getting put down every day where people are getting their own trails and figuring out that, look, this is my path towards happiness. This is my path towards joy, towards wellness. And for some people, even towards wealth. It's okay that the cannabis industry makes people wealthy. I'm not upset at that.
Nothing wrong
I'm
with
not
that
upset
all.
at that. It's actually great, because you need wealth to create jobs, to have philanthropy,
Correct.
to help others.
Correct.
There's two major ends of this spectrum, if you will, in my mind. There's this one where you're overly entrepreneurial and you've completely forgotten the community that you support.
Remembering that there's a patient on the battlefield.
And then there's the other side on you're so philanthropic that you can only help one person.
Right.
And neither one is the right answer. It's the road in the middle where profits help pay for helping the unserved and underserved.
Correct.
And the one thing I'll pat myself on the back a little bit and our team on the back about, that's what we focused on, is how do we take profits, repurpose them to help more people? And that's how you build a brand. And what I think today, the biggest brands in this industry don't even exist. Nobody knows who they are. Everybody's out there trying to pound their chest like, I'm the most badass. I got the. You're nothing.
This
You're
is
nothing.
just the beginning.
Like
It's just the
nobody
beginning.
knows who you are.
It's the first canvas on a wagon going across the dusty trail to the west. Garyn, I got to say thank you so much, sir, for being here today. We're out of time, but I'm going to offer you an opportunity to come back anytime we can be within, a mile or two of each other. Let's get back together and then make sure we provide more information to those out there who really, really need it.
Montel, I love you, and thank you for everything you do. Keep spreading your magic like butter. And look, can we do a giveaway to your people?
Absolutely.
So around this podcast, let's do a 6 Magical Butter Machine giveaway.
Okay.
People who comment in wherever you post this, we're going to support you with 30 machines.
All right.
And on your different formats, give them away. Let's help people and show people
Absolutely.
the beauty of magical butter.
Well, what we'll do is if you're going to give me that many, what I'll do is I'll spread it out over podcasts, and I'll say, we'll do some randomized way to do it. So, if you comment correctly, we'll look at the top 100 comments and just randomly pick one, and boom, we'll send a machine to you.
Together we win.
Together we win.
That speaks for the audience, and that speaks for you. I love you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We're out of time. Make sure you tune in to the next Let's Be Blunt with Montel. And again, our guest today was Garyn Angel. Make sure that you go up on his website, and that is angel@magical.com. Angel@magical.com. Tune in to the next Let's Be Blunt with Montel.